Hey there, amplifiers. Have you ever realized that it is actually pretty challenging to run and grow a business? Take your vision, something that you're really passionate about, and put it out there into the world? Is that things don't always go as planned? Sometimes it's in the business world. Sometimes we're dealing with either our team members or our clients. We have challenges there. Other times it could be what happens in our lives. And it's important to really make sure that you're fueled up and you have a clear vision of where you want to go and you're really dialed into it to pull you through those challenging times. And our guest today is the founder of Home Time Business Services. She is a rock star professional who has been in here for some time helping people with their finances, getting their tax plan put together so that they can achieve the American dream or whatever it is that they're out there achieving. So, Kimberly, I'd like to welcome you back to Growth Amplifiers.
Kenny, thanks so much for that great introduction. And I'm excited to be back, actually. I think it's always good to circle back and be able to see where people have gone from that last time. And last time it was very, very business. And this time I think we're going to get a little more personal on our journeys here.
Speaking of which, we'll just take a quick check-in to say, what has happened for you? If you could share and care to share what you will, what are some of the highlights, some of the things you could say, hey, this has been great since we last connected? And also we'll take a moment to go into the dark side. What are some things that maybe didn't work out that you intended to? And then we're going to talk about what you can do to pull yourself through those setbacks. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure, sounds scary.
Yay,
entrepreneurship.
The struggle is real. All right, so let's start off and just celebrate some things.
So let's celebrate some stuff. We domesticated our business, which means we moved states. So we went from being out in Virginia and moved out to Arkansas in the middle of nowhere, which is awesome. It's really nice to have a virtual practice because we kind of reached out to some of our local Virginia clients and we're like, hey, if we move out of the area, like, how does that work for you? And all but one was like, yeah, that's fine. And the one is, no, I need you here. And I was like, okay. So that helped in our decision. We sold our trucking company. So my husband is no longer in that business. So he is now building a business that's more in line with his dreams. Trucking was a good means to an end to finance our life that we were trying to build. So those are some really nice successes. Through that process, I found out that I had a really good team in place on my bookkeeping side of my practice, because when you're moving and it's tax season, that can be a little bit challenging. So my team stepped up during that process. On top of that, my mom passed during that time. So really challenged that whole piece of entrepreneurship of what happens when you can't. And my girlfriend, Carrie, I basically texted her and I was like, remember when we talked about that? It's time. And she just stepped into our processes and procedures on the bookkeeping side and just kept things running for us. But really, my team was like, we really don't need Kim except for to pay us. Again, it was nice because I could take that time to be with my dad. Yeah.
And
so that's the best and the worst all wrapped into one.
Challenging side. And life happens. We were chatting before we started this podcast of how in the past few years, we all will age. We all get older. Our parents get older. Our friends get older. Clients get older. Everything takes its toll. Is this an inspirational podcast? Or
I mean, it is, but it's not.
But the thing is, we can call it spade a spade. It's the circle of life, Hakuna Matata. Things do happen, but it's how we fuel ourselves, how we keep ourselves inspired, how we push through, because life is going to happen, but we can't let the setbacks and things that just don't go as planned hold us back from moving forward, because then we're not serving ourselves, we're not serving our clients, we're not serving our families. So let's talk about some of the things that you have found that has been helpful and that might be helpful for those listening in
Sure.
for people to stay energized, motivated, and fueled?
I am a very strong spiritual person. So that my why is surrounded around that, to be able to do more work in our ministry, to go out and talk about God, talk about the Bible, talk about a future hope. And that hope really can pull you through literally anything in the world. So that piece of it with the why has always been to free up time in my life to be able to do more of that. And so when we're making decisions in our businesses for both of us, we talk about how does that free up more of our time? How does that get us back time to do more? How does that align with, we really don't need necessarily the more money piece. We're good so we don't want to, when we're looking at the things that we want to do in our life, how does that fit into our business? Because really there's not a separation between work and personal. We work from home, we home from home, right? So we family from home, we entertain from home. So everything is surrounded around this home. And when you move locations 11,000 miles away, not knowing a soul, that could be a little challenging too. But again, going back to the faith, we have a lot of friends now. That took a little bit of prayer because when we first got here, I was like, I want to go back. I don't have friends and my social life is gone and let's go back, which wasn't practical, right? It was very emotional. So we prayed together. And literally that weekend, we had 3 invitations to different things to go do, and it never stopped. So now we're 3 years later, and it still hasn't stopped. I really feel like sometimes that higher power in our lives is really what can fuel certain individuals. And when I volunteer my time, it's to do Bible studies, to teach other people, to give them that hope. And so for me, that really fuels and refills the cup.
I see that a way of being an amplifier, especially in today's time. You can't turn on any sort of media without getting the doom gloom of what is going on, so much divisiveness, violence, and it is happening. So, number one, don't tune into the doom gloom machine. I tune in occasionally just to see what's going on in the world, and I'm like, that wasn't helpful. Why did I do that? But there are some channels and resources that you can tune into and stay informed without getting caught up into that nonsense that is it's just being fueled right now. What I really like about what you're saying is you want to build a life that ultimately you can enjoy and that you can provide to others, and it can fuel your cup when you're helping others and providing value to them.
Mhm.
It's the way we have a community. We foster relationships.
Yeah.
When you mentioned also praying and sharing that for people that don't have that in their habits, they're not doing that. How would you suggest getting started or moving in that direction to change from I'm living the day to day, checking the box and not enjoying it to living a lifestyle that's fulfilling and serving my true purpose?
Yeah. Kenny, it's funny because this whole journey started spiritually for me in 2016. And in 2017, I started my business. I started a Bible study with a person very similar to me and I really spent about 2 years, an hour every single week or more with that person, going through the Bible topic by topic and getting to know God. I was raised in the church, but we never opened the Bible. So, an oxymoron, right? But when you really start diving in and understand that there's a purpose, like God has a purpose for the earth, He's got a court case going on because he was accused of doing something wrong. And that's like the whole Bible. And so it can be a very interesting take on things when you understand who's in charge of the world currently, why it's going to happen, and how it's going to get resolved. So when you think about reading the Bible, don't start in Numbers. Start in like Psalms or Proverbs, where it's good advice for current daily living. It's weird that a book written over 2,000 years ago still has practical advice for today, but it does. We've talked about several of them. Giving. What does that give you? Happiness. That's a scripture. There's more happiness in giving than receiving. The golden rule, that's in the Bible too. That's where that originated from. So there's just so many practical, good pieces of advice. But honestly, start a Bible study with a qualified one on one instructor.
I've said there's a few clients that have taken on recently that do have that religious background, and it struck a chord in me just because I really appreciate their integrity, where they're looking to put their focus to serve their fellow man or woman. I find that spiritually rewarding as well when I'm helping be the amplifier for them. A lot of them have a unique gift. They're wanting to serve their higher purpose, but in many cases, there's a block of something, a threshold they can't quite find their way around. They may be spinning their wheels, and at a point, sometimes you spin your wheels long enough, you just may sit there. But the thought I would challenge people is, if you have that calling, find a way to get past it so you can serve more people, make that a bigger impact. Now, you mentioned something earlier about, I'm a smaller business. I only take on a certain amount of clients. I work with people one-on-one, and I never had the vision to create this big, massive business. It was never part of my intention. I want to work with people that I like, we're doing good things, and help them out. You mentioned something similar, building that lifestyle. Where do you see growing your business? Where do you want to go with your business? If growth and size isn't the thing, where do you look to take your business now?
We're serving bookkeeping and tax clients right now. So we've really focused on the advisory piece within our tax practice, where we're providing tax planning services. That is that higher value thing. It really brings me joy to get around the IRS code for other people. We do things all legally, we do things all above line, right? But there's things in the code that you can use to your advantage. And if you're not using them to your advantage, why?
Have they
So,
made it ridiculously complicated so people who
yeah,
didn't have money couldn't take advantage of it?
yeah,
It really seems like that's the case. They want to say, we want to help people who are in the know. Everyone else, they can pay for everything because they're
yeah.
not part of our elite club.
It's funny because a lot of people think they know what tax planning is, right? Or they watch TikTok videos and try to implement these things. And quite frankly, it's usually not good advice for them. And we're actually having to counteract that advice for people, that have done things that aren't really undoable. So it's tough because, yes, you can save money, but it comes with this expense and this compliance thing and this time thing that you're going to have to do now, and this and this. And they don't go into all of those details. It's just do this and save $20,000 a year. Yeah, but it's going to cost you more than that to do that.
Do you work with individuals or more business owners? What do you typically work with?
Most of my clientele are business owners in one way, shape, or form, whether they're independent contractors, small business owners, or whether they are trying to really scale and make that life for themselves. I do have a few that really have the big businesses, but most of my clients, the sweet spot is really that small entrepreneur who is 100,000 to a $500,000 in revenue, and really you're hitting that American dream, right? But a lot of it's going out to the IRS. And so how do we stop that bleed? And how do we prepare for our future self? And how do we not screw our future self today through that tax plan as well? Because there are things that you can do that will hurt yourself in the future as well. So it's understanding the risk and reward of what you're going to choose to do. If you think that the world is ending in 2 years, you don't need any of it. But if you think that we're going to be around for another 20, 50, 100 years. Most of us aren't going to live that long for the 100, but most of us are going to be around at least for another 10 or 20 years before we're thinking about retirement or thinking about whatever. So, how do you make that happen? Unfortunately, as part of my business, I see the life cycle of businesses. I see them open and have all kinds of like energy, but their why isn't strong.
Mhm.
Making money is not a good why. To get rich is not a good why. Why do you want to get rich? You have to understand the true why under that richness. So when we're talking to clients, we see them struggle through that. They open a bad business or buy a bad franchise that we've just seen every single one of them that come through our doors close within 2 years because they can't maintain the losses year over year. They're not in Amazon that can take a loss for 20 years in a row and still be okay. They're everyday people and they really need that person that gets it in their corner. And that's the type of people that we work with.
So I was just got done finished reading Rich Dad Poor Dad for teens to my two sons. And one
Yeah.
of the quotes in there that really struck with me is professionals have coaches, amateurs do not. So
Yeah.
everyone has a blind spot. And if you think, I know it all at this point, you've got
Yeah.
teenage brain thinking you know it all. A lot of people, when it comes to their taxes, they're thinking about, oh, I know I need to write these things off. I've done this. I've have software that can help me. But I will tell you, if you haven't worked with a tax planner who knows the tax law and really can get in depth to understand your situation, help you see your blind spots, and help you craft a clearer path, you're missing the boat. If you haven't had a conversation with a tax planner, it would make sense to do. You don't know what you don't know. If you have and you've reduced your taxes, you're actively leveraging the tax code, then good for you. But a majority of people aren't, and a majority of people could benefit from getting fresh perspective. So if people were tuning in, they haven't done that, and they want to learn a little bit more about you and what you do, where could they go and what should they do as a first step? Maybe there's something struck a code and they're like, yeah, I don't know if I'm overpaying my
Yeah.
taxes. What should I do?
On our website, we have a contact us page and it allows you to select the different types of appointments. So one of them is tax planning. So that's how you get on our schedule to talk about, is tax planning for me? Do you think you can do something for me? There have been clients that have come to me for tax planning and I'm like, honestly, there's not a lot we can do with what you have going on. And so we use that integrity piece, right? But sometimes it's maybe you just need a little more education in this part, but you don't need full blown tax planning yet. And we give them some parameters on when tax planning is going to start making sense for you. If you have a W 2 job and nothing else, there's a little bit you can do, right? You can start preparing for your retirement by contributing to a 401k and not leaving money on the table, understanding that your net check doesn't change so much. I remember prior to starting my business, I was in banking and I was a licensed investment person at the bank. And I would always meet with the new bankers. And a lot of the new tellers were single moms that are living paycheck to paycheck and like barely getting by, and taking their paycheck and showing them the net effect of contributing to at least get the stuff that the company's offering as the
Mm,
match. And they were shocked when that net pay was only like $2 difference because they're paying less in taxes, because their income's lower, because it snowballs down. And so when you think about putting aside 3, 6% of your paycheck, and it's, I can't give away 6%, but realistically, you can't afford not to because future you will thank you. So it's educating people on small things like that, where you don't necessarily need the full blown tax plan to do that, but you do need to go in and look at the actual numbers. And we'll do a little bit of that for free. If you want to actually see the numbers, that's when we start charging, because that's going to take a little bit more time to do and show you the hard number version of that.
So you go to hometimebusinessservices.com
Correct.
and check it out. If you haven't done that appointment with a tax planner, not just somebody who files taxes, I will say there are CPAs that I've connected with who don't understand tax planning. It's not their specialty. It's not where they're looking. Just like there's a lot of other marketers in the world out there, there's a difference between a marketer and a market optimization coach. If you've tuned in Growth Amplifiers, you know the difference. And one will check the box and just do the very basic. The other people will really get to understand who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, and then help challenge you to take the actions needed to get the result you're looking for. It makes the difference. And so make sure that you're doing that. Kimberly, I appreciate the time to reconnect, hear some of the challenges you've overcome by having that bigger why, by having something that's serving a higher purpose. And it's really cool to hear how you're helping people plan a better life and live a better life by not putting money into something that's probably not going to go into the right hands anyway. Appreciate who you are and what you're doing.
Thanks, Kenny. And we talked about one other thing earlier, and that's us aging, right?
Oh, yes.
And when we think about the cycle of our business, we have to also think about succession planning. And that's definitely just something to just always keep in mind, because I got the best advice when we were buying a house. And it was like, when you're buying a house, think about what's going to happen when you have to sell the house. What are those features that someone else is going to be falling in love with? And that's the same thing that you need to do with your business. What is that thing that someone's going to fall in love with that you're doing in your business to make it saleable in the end? So that's just a little piece of advice I'd like to leave all of our viewers with today.
Thank you. Begin with the end in mind. A lot of people will work really hard through their lives and get to the end when they're trying to pass the torch to someone else and they haven't thought with the end in mind. Never too early to start thinking about how you want things to be. You never know where life will take you. Go with the flow, enjoy the life experiences, the highs and the lows. We can appreciate everything that we're given, and it all helps us in some way, shape, or form. So thank you again, Kimberly. Appreciate you. And if you're tuning in, think about this, not just as something you've heard, but find one takeaway that you could put into action. We take new actions, we can achieve new results. Thank you kindly.
To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.